Welcome to Car and Driver and our ultimate comparison test, 10 Best. Each year, we invite every new vehicle and every significantly changed vehicle available out for this evaluation, so long as they're underneath a price cap. We also invite back last year's winners so they can defend their title. After all, just because a vehicle's new doesn't mean it's better than what was already available. We then spend the next 2 weeks driving, measuring, testing, and evaluating the entire field. This year, that was over 90 vehicles. Afterwards, we get together and vote on our favorites to find the 10 best cars and 10 best trucks. These are vehicles that deliver on their intended purpose while providing exceptional value and a terrific driving experience.
Car and Driver has always loved sports sedans. One of the most famous stories in the magazine's history was written in 1968 by David E. Davis Jr. It was called Turn Your Hymnals to 2002. And it was all about the BMW 2002, which was one of the first really great sports sedans. And that meant that it was a small car, but a sedan. So it had room for more than 2 people. It had room for plenty of luggage. It was a genuinely useful machine. It also had some motor, and it also had good handling. So what it was, a sports sedan, is a practical car that an enthusiast can enjoy driving. And we come to today, and that's what the CT4 Blackwing delivers. It's got a twin-turbo 3.6-liter V6 with 472 horsepower, a great manual transmission, and a pretty good 10-speed automatic as well if you want it. It's very quick. Mid-12s in the quarter mile at about 115 miles per hour. The transmission is a great shifting gearbox with a very nice clutch. The car handles terrifically well, and it's still got a back seat. It's got 4 doors, and it's very, very practical. The other nice thing about the CT4 Blackwing is it's got a list price of just under $64,000. So you put all that together, and that's how this car ends up back on the list one more year.
I love this car. You can make a case that the Cadillac CT5V Blackwing is one of the most absurd vehicles on the road today. After all, it's a luxury sedan with a 668 horsepower V8 that you can get with a 6-speed manual transmission. We of course have the automatic in the car that I'm driving here, but that's besides the point. I would reframe that entire argument and turn it on its head and say, this is actually one of the most sensible vehicles on the road. Why? It does everything. This has that immensely powerful V8 that gives you very, very satisfying acceleration. Yeah, there are EVs that are quicker, but who cares when your car sounds like this? But on top of that, you have a really sophisticated chassis that's so well integrated, put it in its sportiest settings, and this handles like a sports sedan should. It's not a clumsy brawler of a vehicle. It feels nice. It's very satisfying to drive. But dial everything back to the most comfortable settings, and then you have a Cadillac luxury sedan that can fit adults reasonably well and has a good-sized trunk. That makes this a car that can do nearly everything and an easy winner of 10 Best. God. Those upshifts. It's like you're not even ready for the acceleration. It's like, no, you're already almost through the gear. That's insane.
Well, the Corvette won 10 Best again, and with good reason. Many good reasons. The 2 Corvettes of the lineup that have won 10 Best this year are the standard Stingray and the E-Ray hybrid, which we are driving now. The base Stingray comes with 490 horsepower, 495 if you get the Z51 Sport track package. The E-Ray comes with 655 horsepower. It's a hybrid that can run short distances on electricity. But really, it's so much about how they drive. These things are supercars like Ferraris or McLarens, and yet they are a fraction of the cost. And they are delightful to drive, and they are flexible. They ride beautifully. They're quiet. They make great sounds when you want them to, like when you floor the throttle like this. They go like crazy, but they're comfortable enough to drive cross country, and they handle just incredibly well. They're great cars to drive. They're cars that people who love to drive will love driving, and they do their job well, and they're a great value. And that's the reason that they keep winning.
The Honda Accord has a really long history of 10 best wins. Cumulatively, it's got nearly 40 of them at this point, and so much of this car, of this nameplate, has changed since its first win, yet the Accord still retains the inherent qualities that make it an easy recommendation to anybody who's looking at a car in this price range. You have lots of space in the interior, tons of space in the trunk, and then the design is very smart. It feels, I'm not going to say elegant, but it feels more upscale than you would expect for a vehicle of this price. The driving experience isn't thrilling, but hey, it's a family sedan. You don't expect a thrilling driving experience from a car like this. Yet, the Accord still feels good in the ways that numbers don't convey. Somewhere in the ride and handling mix, there's this inherent niceness that you get when you turn into corners on two-lane roads. And when you're commuting on the freeway for hours on end, this car has so much comfort. You also have a hybrid system that's very complicated and sophisticated, but you don't have to pay attention to it. You can just reap the fuel economy benefits and totally ignore it. It's this easy combination of so many great attributes that make the Accord a 10 best winner for another year.
The Honda Civic, the whole line wins 10 best because from top to bottom, it offers something for basically every driver. At the lower end of the spectrum, you get a base Civic, which is wonderful to drive. It's quiet, it's refined, it rides well, it drives well, it's fun to drive, great value. You step up to the hybrid, which is new this year, and you get efficiency and performance. It's quicker than the SI, and it offers people who don't want the manual transmission of the SI kind of a performance option that's also really efficient. We absolutely love this car. The SI, it's tuned for handling, it's tuned for fun to drive. It makes us happy. It's got one of the best shifters in the business. And then if that's not enough, at the very top of the lineup is the Civic Type R, which is over 300 horsepower, manual transmission only, amazing suspension, super wide, sticky tires. It's one of the fastest cars you can drive on our route just because it's so predictable, it's so easy to drive, it's so easy to place, and it's a ton of fun. So for all those reasons, from top to bottom, that's why the entire Civic lineup is a winner, and that's a rare thing.
We're here in the Lucid Air Pure, which is a returning winner for 2025 10 Best. It made the list last time for the first year. The Pure is the most base model. Pure is super impressive all on its own. Last year it cost almost $80,000. This year the price is lower. I mean, when does that happen, right? Now it's just over 70. The range is incredible. The EPA number is 420 miles for 2025. And even the power level, so this is the single motor rear drive, still packs 430 horsepower and does 0 to 60 in just over 4 seconds. It's lighter, of course, with a single motor. It's really athletic and lithe for a big luxury sedan. It's quiet going over the road. It's really refined. It's got an absolutely massive back seat. It's like Mercedes S-Class size rear seat. I'm 6'5", 99th percentile male. I fit behind the seat set for a 6'5" driver. It just nails the luxury car mission. With all those great attributes, that's why the Lucid Air is on the 10 best list once again.
So at the camp, sort of competing against the E450, or at least putting it into perspective, is a BMW 540i. Spectacular engine, not as much fun to drive, ride isn't as good. The E-Class sort of just beats it on all those fronts, and it does it for the same money, if not less. So for around $80,000, you can get basically a loaded E450 with this spectacular powertrain, this incredible refinement, this wonderful ride, and you have an amazing luxury car, and one that I would heartily recommend. At roughly $80,000, this is not an inexpensive car, but you do get a lot of car. You get a sports sedan, you get a luxury sedan, you get a comfortable cabin, you get an amazing powertrain, and I'm sure that when I drive this car again in maybe a few months, I'm gonna have that same moment that I'm having right now, and I'll have it throughout the year, and I think owners will have it too. And for those reasons, this car's on the 10 best list.
Here in the Porsche 718 Cayman and Boxster specifically are on 10 best again this year. Big shocker, right, everyone? If you nail down 10 best into its big three pillars, it kind of nails all three. The 718 has tons of value. It is, of course, obviously fun to drive. I don't think we have to get into that. And its mission fulfillment is 10 out of 10. The great thing about the value too is, I mean, these cars are expensive. A base Cayman 718 with the 2-liter starts like right around 70, and then the Boxster version's a couple grand more. Even at that price, you have tons of value because while this isn't the absolute fastest sports car in the world, it often gets compared to 911s, and it's like 90% of the 911 for maybe 70% of the price, at least starting price. You can get them quite expensive. This is the one we're in is pretty much at the top of the range. It's a GTS 4-liter with a flat 6, and one of the great things about that, about any of them, is that you can still get them with manual transmission that greatly contributes to driver enjoyment and fun, and you get this connection with the car that at any speed, it will always put a smile on your face when you get in it.
So many cars that we drive are subject to the pressure for more power, more grip, more expense and complication. And that's not necessarily a good thing, which is why the Toyota GR86, the Subaru BRZ are so refreshing. They've had one iteration of that where they up the power, they up the grip, the usual, and they've stopped. And they stopped at the right place because the car is just elemental fun the way it is. Naturally aspirated, 7,500 RPM, rear drive, manual transmission. It's all the stuff you want, none of the stuff you don't, not a lot of frills. And yeah, if the interior looks a little bit dated, fine with me. I've got a button for the seat heaters, it's not on a screen. I've got buttons for the mode control, not on a screen. Everything's easy to use. So, if that makes it antiquated, then fine with me. Simple rules of the day.
Some cars get so thoroughly redone in their mid-cycle refresh that we have no choice but to change our tune. And the 2024 Tesla Model 3 is one of those cars. So much so, in fact, that it has landed on our 10 best list for 2025. Both the performance and the regular long-range Model 3 underwent the Project Highland mid-cycle refresh over the past year, and the result is great. Once we hooked our microphones up to it, we recorded a 3 decibel drop in cabin noise between this and the pre-refresh version, which, if you're not familiar with the logarithmic scale, is pretty darn big. Then there's range benefits. I mean, right now, the long-range rear-wheel drive version of the post-refresh Model 3 gets 363 miles to a charge. That's pretty good. But, of course, we are car and drivers, so the number one thing that really matters most to us is whether or not the car drives nicely. And really, the post-refresh Model 3 is killing it. It's so much smoother over the road than it was before the refresh, and again, with the acoustic glass and everything, the cabin is quiet, it's serene, you get good views, it's the whole package. Because of that, and now, some more aggressive pricing, that's why it's on our 10 best list.
I like the Trax because it's an incredible value, and there's just not that many cars on sale today that you can get this kind of equipment and not spend more than 30 grand. It's practical, it's pretty fun to drive, the interior is really well laid out. It's something that somebody who might be downsizing from a larger SUV because maybe their kids have gone off to college can still have that everyday practicality and have something smaller, more fuel efficient. On the outside, the Chevy Trax is also really handsomely styled. You're not looking like you spent as little as you did. Yeah, okay, the 3-cylinder engine, it's a little pokey at times. You know, the benefit too to having the 3-cylinder is that it's pretty fuel efficient. This is the second time in a row we've had the Trax on our 10 best list.
So a lot of people think that they need a big truck, and the Ford Maverick is mechanical proof that you don't. It drives well, and its hybrid form is extremely efficient. The Ford Maverick is a value. It drives really nice. It's a totally functional vehicle. You can throw your dirt bike in the back, you can throw some mulch in the back, and you can cruise around and get fuel economy in the mid-30s. The greatness in the Ford Maverick package of functionality, fuel economy, it's nice to drive, are what make the Maverick a repeat 10 best winner. Since Ford created the Raptor name well over a decade ago, they've been absolutely killing it in the off-road game. It started with the F-150, moved on to the Bronco, and for the first time ever, it's now available on the Ranger. The Raptor package adds a 3-liter V6 with over 400 horsepower, Trick Fox dampers, and front and rear locking differentials. Whereas the F-150 Raptor feels like you're piloting a cruise ship, the Ranger feels like the right size. It's narrower, so you can get down tighter trails, and it's this smaller package is just generally really nice to throw around on dirt roads. And this huge shock package isn't just for launching off of jumps. It actually does a very nice job swallowing bumps in everyday driving situations. And sure, $57,000 to start isn't cheap, but in the grand scheme of things, there's a whole lot of truck here for the money. The Ranger Raptor covers all the bases.
This car was popular with everyone. It gets a lot of miles on it because it's an incredibly comfortable ride. And the word elegant gets thrown around a lot, but it really is. It's sort of beautiful on the outside. The interior has incredible materials. Everything feels nice, and it looks great. It all goes really well together. GV70 offers several different versions from a 4-cylinder, a 6-cylinder, which we're in very fast, and then its top option is an electric, and all of them are a great value because they all offer numerous useful features and a great handling and performance. I think we described it as a luxury sport wagon. So it'll carry all your stuff, and when you need to go fast, it's right there ready for you.
The Honda CR-V has made our 10 best list 3 years in a row, and that's because it's so great at so many different things. The CR-V is like an Accord, but with a taller driving position. The interior is attractive, it's minimalistic, and everything's laid out in a way that makes sense. Look, this hybrid model doesn't have eye-popping performance numbers. Instead, it's much more refined than its rivals, even at wide-open throttle. It's a miser when it comes to fuel economy, and this hybrid gets up to 40 mpg combined. While it competes in the compact space, its massive interior makes it feel much bigger than it actually is. The CR-V handily earns its popularity and another spot on our 10 best list. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 has once again returned to our 10 best list. Now, in addition to appearing on 10 best, it's also won EV of the Year twice, both for the normal Ioniq 5 as well as its hopped-up super fun brother, the Ioniq 5N. 5N, as evidenced by our EV of the Year award win, is just a fabulous performance car. Sure, it's not the quickest out there, but between the N-Grin E-Shift and all sorts of other little tricks up their sleeve that kind of bridge the gap between electric and internal combustion, it makes for a pretty fun ride. But then again, regular Ioniq 5 is no slouch either. This thing is pretty motivated with 2 motors, front and rear, and, you know, all that good old-fashioned instantaneous EV motor torque. The Ioniq 5 is a family crossover through and through, at least in, regular guys. It's big, it's roomy, there's plenty of space in the back for cargo, there's plenty of space in the front for adults. So then let's talk about value. Now granted, all new cars are expensive these days, but the Hyundai Ioniq 5 tries to keep it pretty affordable, offering a single motor configuration and dual motor configuration starting somewhere in the $40,000 range. Of course, the Ioniq 5N, a little bit more fun, a little bit more power, a little bit more everything really, and for $65,000, that puts it in line with a lot of other good performance cars in that kind of performance segment. This is a fabulous family car. It accommodates 5 adults comfortably, it will take plenty of cargo in the back, and when it comes time to charge, you get more than 200 kilowatts of the DC fast charger, so you're not really, stuck having to entertain your family for too long.
Would you look at that? Another year, another 10 best win for the Kia Telluride. We've been big fans of this mid-sized 3-row SUV ever since it came out because it does everything you want a vehicle like this to do. It's spacious, it's functional, it looks good inside and out, it has a ton of features for the money, and it has this aura of sophistication that you don't really get at mid-size SUVs in this price range. If you need further proof, consider that my family owns one and we love it. This is one of those SUVs that's an easy recommendation to anybody who wants a 3-row SUV. Yeah, the price has gone up a bit more since it first came out, but you still get a mix of features and overall appearance that makes this worth your money.
The Porsche Macan, for a vehicle that ostensibly has a lot of competition, Audi, Mercedes, BMW, everyone makes something sort of like this. It really doesn't have any direct competition because nobody has nailed this formula, which is SUV, do the SUV things, tow, have back seats that are comfortable enough, all-wheel drive, and yet, when you're in the mood, it becomes a sports car. The steering is so great, the engine sounds so good, active exhaust. And if you have, say, a 911 and you get into this, it's got that same sort of flavor, which is a pretty remarkable achievement for an SUV. So, yeah, it's not really changed that much from prior iterations that also were on the 10 best list. But on the other hand, nobody's come along to dethrone it either. So, Porsche Macan, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
The thing about the Ram 1500 is that you could easily mistake this cabin for a luxury vehicle. All the new classes of full-size trucks have gotten pretty nice, but this top tungsten model is a step above, from materials to fit and finish, the attention to detail even on the knobs and controls. Really, really high quality and just adds to the feel of the vehicle. But that's only part of what makes this truck such a standout. The ride and handling is just excellent. We joke around that it drives like a car, and most full-size trucks do drive like cars, but this puts an exclamation point on it. All the best traits that we look at on, say, this tungsten model, they apply to the entire Ram 1500 range. The lower model trims, while not as luxurious inside here with their massaging seats and everything, still have very nice designs, very nice materials. The cabins feel upscale, and you can get the same or similar suspension packages on this thing as on a lesser truck, which allows them to drive just as well.
So I drove the European version of the ID.Buzz more than 2 years ago in Copenhagen, and I thought at the time, well, we'll be getting this anytime now, right? And we haven't, obviously, and everybody's going, well, why not? What took so long? What took so long is that Volkswagen took the time to get it right, and I'm glad that they did. They didn't rush it. The European version had some problems that they needed to address. It was only 2 rows. They needed to stretch it. I had no HVAC in the back. The rear windows didn't open. It was basically an adapted cargo van. This kind of a van required some clever solutions, like those rear windows look so cool on the outside because they're flush. Well, how do you get those to open? Well, they came up with the horizontal slider, which is pretty cool. So it looks flush on the outside, but it still opens. You can't take the second row seats out. The third row you can take out, which is good because owing to this crazy concept car look, the rear wheels are pushed out to the corner. There's nowhere to fold a third row into the floor. So there are a couple of compromises relative to the crop of conventional minivans, but I think people are going to be okay with that because this thing is fantastic to drive. It's easily the quickest minivan out there, and just look at it. This is the only company that could evoke nostalgia with a van like this, the whole counterculture vibe, while also being something completely new and up to date and great to drive. So I say, worth the wait, ID.Buzz.